Hi everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Live, another edition. And today's guest is Cameron Duke. He's a high school football coach here in Florida. Cam, thank you so much for joining me. If you wouldn't mind, just maybe share a little bit about your background, how you got into coaching and where you are right now.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. I'm actually in an office. There we go. We're back on. I'm the head football coach at Edgewater High School down here in Orlando. Been the head coach here since 2017. Prior to that, I was a head coach at Lake Highland Prep, which is a private school here in Orlando down the road. So I've been a head coach at the high school level here in Florida for the last 10 years. We'll be going on year 11 this spring, heading into the fall. But I've been coaching a bunch of years prior to that and had stops throughout the state of Florida. Have had an opportunity to coach a little bit of college football at Carson Newman College as an assistant, and even a long time ago, spent a little bit of time as a student assistant at Florida State with Coach Bowden when I was an undergrad at FSU. So I love coaching, love the chance to impact kids through the game of football. I feel like it's a calling of my life, what God's called me to do, and get a chance to use this platform to influence the next generation and be competitive in the game of football. And I love it, so I'm fired up. We're actually about a month out from starting spring practice here in the state of Florida. We get 20 days of practice with a spring game. And then summer, of course, is all about gearing up for the fall and number 11 as a head coach. And year number 8 at Edgewater will be starting this fall. So excited, fired up. We got a lot of work to do. April gets really busy for us at the high school level, April, May. And then, of course, June and July is all prep for the fall.
Maybe not a lot, but I have prospective students coming to me. I want to be a college coach. I want to be a college coach, or I'm a high school coach and I want to be a college coach. You probably have had opportunities to go to the college level. I'm curious why you decided to stay as a high school coach.
I would always ask them, are you sure about that? Do you really know what you're getting into? From the standpoint of football at the moment, college football is at a whole nother level with the time and with everything that comes into play with being a college football coach. We see all the glamour on Saturday, but you very, very rarely understand what's going on Sunday through Friday prior to, of course, kickoff on Saturdays in the fall. College coaching is I have so much respect for people in that profession, but it is an absolute grind. And we all see the people making the big money, right, at the Division I schools. But besides that, there's not a lot of money in college football coaching outside of the Division I schools. I mean, you're gonna make very little at a lot of other levels. I know this for sure. Of course, nobody usually gets into coaching for the money, but as you get older and you have a family, I mean, that's important. But for me, I have the utmost respect for college football coaches and what they do. And the ones I have the most respect for usually are the ones that have a big perspective on why they do what they do. They don't just get lost in trying to climb the ladder. It's really more of a calling in their life. Those are the ones that I've always gravitated towards more. But I'm fortunate that I have a family with 2 little girls and a wife. And the best thing about my job is that I'm able to dictate my time at the moment of when I can go home and when I don't. And then when you're in the college world, the calendar right now for a college football coach is in college football is out of context. I mean, there's so many people out there that talked about. I mean, they're working 7 days a week majority of the year. That's really tough on a family. That's really tough on a marriage, and it can be very difficult if you're trying to see your children. And not saying it can't be done, but one of the reasons I've stayed where I am and feel grateful is that I feel like I'm able to have time with my wife and my girls, and that's very important to me. And still coach football at a high level and do all that. But the glitz and glamour of Saturday is awesome. But as you know, and as others know, there's a lot more to it from the standpoint of the calendar, the recruitment, the year-round deal, and the absolute grind that comes with it. And again, we see the coaches that are making a lot of money, but very rarely do you see all the FCS, D2, D3, NIL coaches. What are they making in the hours that they're putting in? And now at the college level, the analysts and quality controls. And I mean, these staffs are huge. They're bigger than they ever have been. So college coaching is great, and I think it's awesome when people get involved and want to do it and feel the call to do it. Right now, the good Lord has kept me right where I am as a high school coach, and I am very grateful and excited about being right here.
Being a head coach in a community can be very enjoyable. You're well known. You're part of the community. You have responsibilities. You're respected, etc. I suspect also it comes with maybe some responsibilities and challenges that the people who aren't head coaches don't think about or experience. What is it like being a head coach in the sport in the US, the sport in Florida, where wherever you go, you're seen and people know who you are?
I feel real grateful. Edgewater is such a community school. College Park is here in Orlando. It's an old school. It's one of the oldest high schools in the city. And, it's definitely driven by the community. So I love that aspect. I live less than 2 miles from the school. The, the issues are when you go to Publix, you're probably going to bump into somebody and they're going to want to have a conversation. But I'm good with that. This community has been very good to myself and our family. We're very much intertwined with the community, and we go to church here, we grocery shop here, we go out to eat here. But we love that, and Central Florida is home for me. And, but it, there are different schools throughout the state, right? Some are more community driven than others. This one is definitely one that is driven by the community, and I love that aspect of it. But saying that does come responsibility. People are going to probably know you and your family and who you are. I remember when I first when I first became a head coach, I was really nervous about that, kind of living in that glass house. But at the end of the day, you got to do the best you can and be who you are, and try to be as good to people as you can. And I will tell you this, it is very important. My dad told me this right when I got in. He's like, "You're going to get into coaching." And I was young. He said, "You better have thick skin." That's very important. I'm not. There's very few people that I'm really worried. I heard a great quote. I think it was Coach Sweeney, because I don't listen to criticism from people I wouldn't seek advice from. And I love that, because there's a lot of criticism no matter what as a football coach. That's just part of it. And people are going to question calls and what you do schematically and so forth. And they're going to question just about everything. But the ones that I'm only going to listen to are the people that I would seek advice from, right? That's family. That is my team. That's my coaches. That's close friends. And then there's people in this community that I would seek advice from, that I will also would listen to their criticism as well. But having thick skin is going to be really important as a head football coach in a community-driven school. But also, it's a great opportunity to build real relationships throughout the community and generate great support. I think at Edgewater, one of the best things we've been able to do the last 7 years, going on year 8, is generating community support with attendance at our games, with helping with funding the cost of things that we have to get funded year in, year out, and them being, I've always said this, it takes a village to really have a great football program. It's not just the coach, not just the players, it's the community, it's the staff, it's administration. There's so many things that go into play to having a sustainable success as a high school football program, I think, in the state of Florida, and probably any state. It has that village mindset. So when you have that approach, then, I love it. But thick skin is important. You need to know that as a coach, because there's going to be people that are going to be critical. That's part of the job. But then again, you're also going to have people that are going to want to support that which is good, and we've been very grateful for that here at Edgewater.
Do you think thick skin is something developed or something that you said your dad just said you've got to have it?
I think it's both. I think you get better at it. I think I think
How do you get better at it? Like if somebody is a aspiring coach, or maybe moving up and going into a head coach role, they're going to receive more criticism. It happens. Leadership creates comments. We'll put it that way. How do you approach that so that when you get that criticism of you shouldn't have done this, or why did you do this, or this is what I think about you, it doesn't kind of permeate the soul, so to speak?
Yeah. And I think for me, we kind of look at what we do is from the 3D coaching model. And my pops, Jeff Duke, helped kind of start that in the 3D Institute. Really what that is for me is that understanding that it's so much bigger than football. This is a calling. This is what God has called me to do. And so I'm going to try to honor him with how I coach. Right now, with the criticism and developing thick skin, I think the more you do it, the more it's like anything, the more you practice it, right? When you have parents say things to you after a game, or when you have a meeting and they come in and they have things that they're going to say that are probably going to be, let's just say, not very sweet or kind. One of the things that I always want to stand on is that we're always going to be truthful and honest within our program with the people that want to be critical with them, right? And I'm very much I have open access policy in our program. I mean, parents can come and watch practice, and they know they can schedule meetings with me and so forth. Now, we have multiple parent meetings. I have one coming up next week prior to spring ball starting, where we'll go over expectations and protocols about how to approach a coach and so forth, and what we will and won't discuss with family members or parents. But I do think, thick skin is something that I've gotten better at. I've probably always had it a little bit as a competitor, but when you are in leadership, there's going to be people that are critical. We had a really, really talented football player. We've had a few, but we've had one named CJ Baxter, was at Texas, and it was his junior year, and he was an incredible leader for us. And I remember he was getting some pushback from some of the older players, seniors, because he was a leader. And I remember him coming to my office, and I told him, I said, listen, you got to understand, leadership can be very lonely. It's just part of the deal. Where you're leading others, you're going to sometimes feel it can be lonely, but that's just part of being a leader. I think it's also sometimes part of being a head football coach, where you got to know there's going to be people that don't agree with you or say things. One of the things I don't do is I don't go searching out, comments on social media, or I don't go and look for it at all. Because the ones that are going to talk really high about you 1 minute can also be tearing you down the next. That's part of it. Again, the ones that I'm going to go to is I'm always going to try to honor God with how I coach, and then I'm going to listen to those that are around me that I would seek advice from. And within my profession, that's my assistant coaches, that's my leaders on the team, right? Of course, that's my family. And then, of course, there are some community stakeholders and administrators and my athletic director as well that I'm always going to seek advice from, which then also they can be critical of the things that, we hopefully can continue to work on and improve. And I think also having a growth mindset and being humble is really important. I don't have all the answers. We don't have it figured out. We're a work in progress, and I'm learning and growing each year as well.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back with Coach Cam. If you have a question and you're watching live, put it in your chat box. We'll try to get it to him. The mission of FSU Coach is to prepare and equip the next generation of coaches and sports professionals with best practices and current research to enable them to pursue excellence. We have 2 academic programs, the online graduate certificate, which is 4 classes, and also a 10-class master's in athletic coaching. Our graduate certificate and master's program can be started at any time, either the summer, fall, or spring. All of our classes have the word coach or coaching in them, and they're taught by coaches for coaches.
The types of classes that we offer focus on the athlete as a whole person. We focus on the theory and practice, the research, the helping skills, even some of the mental performance behind what it goes into being an athlete. I came to FSU Coach because I truly believed in the mission and the purpose of the program.
I think I have my dream job being a head coach at Florida State, but I know there's always more ways that I can help my athletes and better prepare as a coach. So I thought joining this master's program would help me learn different ways to attack my job. If you're interested in going into coaching or joining the FSU Coach program, I would just say don't even think about it and do it.
All right, lights are back on. I saw you waving, Cam.
Sorry.
No worries. One of the things that we've been talking about, we had a lengthy phone conversation before this interview happened, and we were just talking about the situation for coaches in Florida. And I know one of the concerns for all of us is that while Florida has a massive pool of talent and athletes in the state, a lot of coaches are incentivized to leave the state because of the financial incentives that other counties, other states can offer. Georgia and Alabama being the 2 closest. Where are we at on that? Why are you still in Florida? Because I I suspect that there have been offers from other states where, hey, Cam, you're successful. You've established a program. We want you over here and we can offer you X amount of money as opposed to what's offered in Florida. I'm just curious, A, why you stayed, and B, how do we stop that from happening so that you're not even incentivized to go to another state?
Right. Yeah, there's been times and there's been opportunities. I know you and I spoke, and one very recently where there was an opportunity presented about, moving to a different state and taking it over a job that was going to pay me more money. And it was a tough decision. My wife and I, we prayed about it. We looked into all the details, kind of where we are as a family. And, why we decided to stay is that we feel our time up wasn't here. We love this community. This community has been really good. We do have family in the area. Of course, having little ones with family close by is a game changer. But it was one of those deals where, for me, Florida is home. I'm from the state of Florida. I'm fifth generation Floridian on my mom's side, which is pretty rare. And I believe in this state, and I want to believe in the direction that we're going, that we're going to continue to make the improvements needed for really quality coaches not to leave to go to, technically greener pastures. Now, I do know this: there is no utopia in this profession. There's no perfect place. Every place is going to have their issues and they're going to have their strengths, right? And so when we looked at this opportunity, and there's been others in the past, one of the reasons we're still here is the relationships, I think, is what drives this business. I think what the things that matter the most in coaching or athletics are relationships. I've always believed that and believed that thoroughly. And that's the relationships I have with this school, of course, with our players, and then with this community. The community has been really good to myself and our family. And I love Edgewater, and it wasn't ever looking to leave, but there was some opportunities that we had to take a look at as a family. And I don't think there's anything ever wrong with looking at other opportunities that present themselves. But this was a situation where we said, hey, we're here. We're kind of planting our flag here. And we want to continue to try to be on I'd love to be to help try to continue to improve our state, whatever that looks like, to where we can keep great coaches here to help our athletes in the state of Florida develop on and off the field. And I think there's a lot of discussion. I know you and I have talked about it. There's some momentum we have in the state now with some real conversations, even from the state legislative level, about what we can do to help incentivize and also pay coaches what they deserve to be paid for the amount of time that they work. And it was a situation that I love our state. I believe in the state of Florida. We have some changing and growing to do as far as how we're going to make sure we keep great coaches and quality coaches in the state. And hopefully the discussions and the momentum we have will continue to where the necessary changes can happen, hopefully in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, so forth. But for me personally, why we decided to stay, we looked at every aspect from a family situation, from our community, where we live, the school. And we said, you know what? Our time at Edgewater is not done. And we have great peace about that. But that was something that we definitely walked through. And I know a lot of coaches have done that. And the ones that have left, I understand. Like, I do. I completely understand. And I wish them well. And a lot of them have gone off to other states and been very successful. Because I think sometimes coaches in the state of Florida can do more with less than a lot of these other places.
You've elected to stay, and I'm curious, as somebody who's working in the trenches, what ideas, how do we change the pay structure of coaches? Do you have any ideas? What needs to change? Is it at the district level? Is it state legislation? How do we fix this? Because it is a problem. Coaches in Florida haven't really gotten raises for in some counties decades.
Right.
What would you do if you had the power to fix it? How would you fix it?
Well, I think, from a state standpoint, there definitely needs to be a look at, okay, we've increased teacher salaries and so forth, which is great. And of course I'm a teacher as well. But the supplements haven't changed in, how long. And there's something that needs to be, there's the bell right there for one of my classes. So one of the things is we need to look at the structures of our supplements and how they haven't changed. There was a while where a lot of counties were doing a percentage based off your teaching salary. right? So as teaching salaries, the more years you had in the state, and more your salary increased here in the state of Florida from your teaching salary, then your supplement was based off a percentage, which was great. You could base it, whatever they did, but your supplements would change as your teaching salary went up. That's one way you could do it. The other one is funding, of course, from the state level is a deal. And then also, I think we should allow our schools that want to have, independent booster clubs to say, hey, we want to be able to raise money to pay our coaches. So people in the school that have a vested interest, and it doesn't have to be football. It could be a school that has a great interest in their basketball program and their swim program, or you name it, where they say, this is really important to this school and our community, that we want to be able to attract and retain great coaches. So we're going to be able to raise money and do it in a way that, is transparent and open and honest, where we're going to be able to raise money to where we are going to be able to pay coaches and assistant coaches what they deserve, because this program means a lot to this school, this community, so forth. And again, it doesn't have to be football, because there are different places, as you know, in our state where baseball is the primary sport of that school, or where basketball is the primary sport, or football means a big deal, or girls or boys soccer. I go on and on, where there's perennial state powers in those schools, and that's really important to them. And so they should be able to say, okay, we're our own entity. We want to be able to raise money through a booster club or through the community, however, that is transparent. And we want to be able to attract and keep coaches here because we're able to pay them. Now, with that comes more pressure, right? We understand that. Like with more pay comes more pressure. But if you're a competitive coach and you're called to coach, you understand that we're going to be judged by that scoreboard. So it doesn't matter where I am. I'm going to be competitive, and I don't think no one's going to put more pressure on myself or any great coach than me. So that would, I think that's one of the ways we could do it. I do think we do need to change the supplement schedule. You could do it based off a percentage. There's a lot of thoughts out there. Do it percentage off your teacher pay, and then allow each school to kind of become its own entity, be able to raise money and funds for the coaches that community feel is important.
Yeah, I particularly like that second idea, because the first one assumes you're teaching in the schools, and
right.
About 50% of the coaches don't. So it creates that concern. Tacking onto that, one of the things that Florida is discussing is NIL at the high school level, which some states have already adopted. We've seen talented athletes leaving states, just like coaches, for better quote unquote pay in other states. Assuming NIL does happen in Florida, and I think it's probably a matter of when, not if, are you concerned about how that power structure might change in your program, given that, let's be honest, some of the athletes that you coach may be making more than you?
Well, I've talked to coaches that have worked in states that have NIL already up and running. And, the thing that listen, if a young person can make money based off a sponsorship for their name, image, or likeness, I mean, great. I'll tell you this, it's hard for us to get the local pizza spot here in our town to give us money for a field sign. So do I really think they're going to give money for a player? It's going to be less and less than we think. Now, if you do, we've had some national recruits here at Edgewater. And if they were able to be here and make some kind of financial deal through a company or organization that wanted to pay for their name, image, or likeness, I think that's great. The thing that would worry me is if schools did what the college level's done and they started forming collectives, right? And I think there's going to be hopefully stuff in place that will not be allowed. But if you take a private school, right, that has let's say a large endowment, or let's say there's a lot of wealth in that private school, and you have some people in that school or community form a collective to where then you're taking money and you're paying for players to come play at your school. Now that bothers me, and I think that's wrong. And I pray that that does not happen and won't be allowed to happen. Mm-hmm. But if a young person is able to make a little bit of money because the local car dealership wants to be able to pay for their name, image, or likeness because they are a young person that's getting recruited at a national level, and they already have. There's another bell. Sorry about that.
No worries.
That's telling everybody to get to class on time very fast. So give me 1 second. I don't even know what song this is.
Well, we can hear you fine if you want to keep going.
What's that?
You can't hear us. I'm saying we can hear you fine.
All right, there. We should be done.
You know what's going to happen, Cam? I'm going to put
What's
this
that?
on YouTube, and I'm going to get some copyright claim because I had
Oh.
music through the back.
I wonder what our school's doing with that. I wonder if they've got it. That's just tell them everyone to hustle up. You're about to be late. But I apologize for that.
No, the great points about the collective, great points that you made. And I think these are things that have to be worked out from a coaching perspective. I would be concerned about who's most likely to get those NIL deals, probably the star players. And how does that affect the team cohesion that's going on, where you've got a quarterback who's getting that nice car dealership sponsorship and the left guard is getting nothing? How is that going to affect some of those dynamics in your team?
It would make me sick because, at the end of the day, we as coaches are here to influence those that we have on our team and within our program. And, the percentage, and this is, 10% of my guys are going to go off and play college football, right? So 90% will not. Now we have a pretty high number of guys that have gone off and played here, but, I better be coaching and influencing and loving, every single one of our guys, and not just the ones that are our star players or ones that are making us better, et cetera, or winning games. So that why do we play and why do we coach and all that can get really muddled with this, because you're going to have parents now that think, okay, I can go and make money through this NIL deal at the college level, which I don't think is really going to happen. Very little. And I've talked to some high level programs throughout the Southeast that have NIL in their states, and they've had very few, if any, players that have gotten any kind of NIL deal while they've been in high school. But you're going to have to educate parents on this if it does pass within our state about what does it look like, and then what are the parameters behind it. But at the end of the day, there's so many things that we believe in our program that, we want to honor and recognize those people in our program that are selfless, right? That lead others well. Like on our helmet stickers are based on academics, acts of selflessness, and acts of leadership. And they get recognized by our players. It's not about how many touchdowns you've thrown. It's not about how many yards you've rushed for or anything like that. You could, the guy on their sideline who might not play a down could have his helmet filled because he's somebody that gives, his teammate a ride home every day, or he's somebody that's helped tutor others in class, or he's got his GPA has been, he's one of our leaders on our team academically, and so all those things are what we want to build our program around, and not the individual. Football is such a team sport, right? In the NIL world, it's now making it about the individual. So it does make it more difficult as a coach when you're trying to build great team cohesion and build that family atmosphere when NIL comes into play. If it does come into play at the high school level and gets passed, then we'll really have to look at it and educate parents and educate our student athletes about what it is and what it looks like. But I really, our culture has become more and more about, me and not about us. And as a coach, that's scary. But again, I'm excited about, I have players that are in college that have NIL deals, and I'm excited for them that they're able to make money through the game of football. I really am. When it comes to high school, if that was able to really happen, I'd be happy for that person, that young person and their family, no doubt. But I'd also want to make sure I'm doing everything in my power that I'm still empowering our whole team and carrying them and coaching every single one of our guys. So that might make it more difficult. There's no doubt.
Yeah, great thoughts. Now, you and I started conversations because of professional development and just getting better. And I'm curious why somebody who has been a head coach for a number of years is interested in learning more and exploring more. I'm not interested. I know why. We've already had this discussion. But for other people, why? You called about our master's program, and for many people, the answer would be, I don't need that. I'm a head coach. I've been so for a number of years. I'm successful. So I'm curious your thoughts on why you were thinking that way, and why others who may be established coaches should rethink that kind of philosophy of, I've been there and done it, I don't need to know more.
Well, I think, having a growth mindset as a coach is critical. You're continuing to try to empower and get better at your profession. I've been able to do that, of course, with the 3D Institute as well in the past, which has been incredible. And then a master's is something that I come from a family of educators, and a master's is something that I've always said, that's something I want to do, but I just didn't want to go get my master's in ed leadership. I hope the good Lord never calls me into educational leadership. I respect the heck out of our principals and administrators, but that is not what I'm called to do. I'm called to coach. And here's a master's through my alma mater that has a master's program in athletic coaching and it was a no-brainer. And my athletic director is going through the track at FSU. I think it's the athletic administration track, and he's bragged on the program. And so he was the one that kind of said, hey, you need to look into FSU Coach Master's program. And when I did, it was awesome. And then it's got a strong name. My father's a professor, and he said, great things about it as well. And it just kind of all worked out. And I said, here's an opportunity for me to grow professionally, get my master's as an educator and as a coach in a program that I would be intrigued, not only intrigued in, but wanting to learn and grow. It's my profession. It's what God's called me to do. And here is, a program with the state institution. I'm a coach in Florida. I'm a Seminole as well. And here it was a no-brainer for me to be able to do this. So I'm excited about starting this summer and trying to continue to grow as a professional. Because, we're, as a coach, this game's always evolving, and things are changing in culture and society, and trying to be proactive and not reactive, I think, is really important in this profession. So this is a way for me to be proactive as a coach and to better myself, and hopefully come out with a master's degree here in the next few years.
Yeah. And I will say that you are what I might describe as a typical student of ours, in the sense that you're not straight out of college as a 21-year-old who doesn't know what they're doing. And I'm just going to do a master's, because we get a lot of students coming in who are established coaches and realize I can get better and I want to get better, and they have that growth mindset. So we're excited to have you in class. And I know your dad is, if anybody knows your dad, well, he's very enthusiastic about it as well. Last question then. I typically ask guests if you can provide some advice to coaches, whether they are established coaches or people who want to become coaches, based on your experiences. What 2 or 3 pieces of advice would you like to pass on?
I think this profession needs to be a calling on your life. I think it needs to be, what's your why? We talked about money, and listen, we're not going to get rich being a coach. And if the ones that do, great. And hopefully their why never changes. But for me, the why was, besides my father, my high school football coach was the most influential man in my life. And I know from a lot of the guys that I played ball with growing up felt the same way. So the why is, I have a chance to go and impact the next generation through the game of football, through the game I love, and get a chance to be competitive, and all the stuff that comes with being a football coach is great. But we have a chance to go and impact the next generation and let them know, that they hopefully when they leave our program, they're better people because of it. And I don't mean a better football player. I'm talking about 25 years down the road, that hopefully the lessons and habits that they've been able to establish have helped them become a better husband, a better father. I hope they know that I love them, that God loves them, and they're going to get a chance to go and be better because of our program. That's the why. So your why's you got to have a real why, and say, I want to be competitive. I want to win games. All those things are great. I don't think that's self-sustainable in this profession. This profession, you're never going to win enough games. You're never going to win enough championships. You hear it all the time. Somebody wins a championship, and the first thing they're thinking about is how to win the next one. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that cannot be your central focus, because I think it'll leave you empty and dry if that's the case. There's got to be a deeper calling on why you want to coach the sport that you want to coach. And that's been evident in my life when I was young, and still is today. And as soon as that why isn't the why, then it's time for me to go do something else. So that, and I think we got to always remember, this is a relationship driven business. We got a chance to have that name coach in front of our name. So we need to take that with great sense of responsibility. How are we leading our coaches and players, our players and our coaches that you get a chance to impact and influence? How are we helping them? How are we serving them? This is a servant-based job. I'm not here to be served. I'm not here to be glorified. I'm here to serve. Who am I serving? My coaches, my players, my community, my school. With that, we know we're going to be judged by that scoreboard. So winning is very important. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think it can be the most important, because if it is, I think it'll leave you empty. Now, we get hired and fired by winning. We know that. And so we take it very seriously. But the why has got to always be so much bigger than that. And we got to understand, with that title coach, we have a lot of responsibility to go and serve those that we get an opportunity to serve and lead those well. And we want to do it out of love and not fear.
Well said. If somebody does want to reach out to you, maybe has questions for you watching or listening after this live show, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Shoot me an email, coachcamduke@gmail.com. They can shoot me an email. I'd love to, talk and chat, anything you got. I know there's a bunch of coaches that I'm in constant communication with, asking questions all the time. So any question, I'd love to be able to answer.
Awesome. And I do hope people do reach out. And for those listening to the podcast, that's Coach Cam, CAMDUKE @gmail.com. Well, Cam, thank you so much for joining me. And just a reminder, everybody, we do these interviews every couple of weeks. So be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel or Spotify on our podcast so you can catch all of those episodes. I also want to remind you as well about June 15th in Orlando, Florida. We have our second annual Coaches Clinic. Registration's now open, so we've been starting to get registrations in. That's awesome. We've got a great lineup of speakers. Hopefully in 2 weeks' time, I'll be able to provide the graphic of all of those speakers as well. But trust you'll join us for them. If you're in the Florida area, hey, last year we had people coming from out of state, so I think the Orlando airport is pretty accessible as well. So if you get a chance, come visit us for the day. Let's get some learning together as coaches. But on behalf of myself, Tim Baghurst, and Cam Duke, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.